Welcome back to The Explainer. If you're a focused learner trying to, decode the hidden logic behind major global events, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're diving into some absolutely fascinating, groundbreaking research by Ezra Merve Chalishkan. She literally decoded global cyber crises from the 2000s, and let me tell you, her findings completely flip how we think about modern warfare on its head.
So I want you to picture basically every Hollywood hacker thriller you've ever seen. The expectation is always just maximum destruction, right? Some rogue state pushes a giant red button, and boom, a rival nation's power grid goes dark, banks melt down, total chaos in the streets. But look around at the real world. Despite nations actually having these terrifying godlike digital weapons, why hasn't a true cyber Armageddon happened? Like, why hasn't anyone just pulled the ultimate plug?
Okay, let's dive into this. According to the study, the huge gap between that Hollywood expectation of total digital annihilation and our actual reality, it all boils down to one thing: calculated mathematical restraint. You see, states aren't just blindly firing off cyber weapons. They're constantly running incredibly complex mental math. Cyberspace isn't some digital Wild West. It's actually a highly structured environment governed by strict mathematical rules. Section 1. Decoding with game theory. The strategic logic of cyber. To really get these rules, we have to look at game theory. Basically, if you want to understand how countries behave online, you have to treat it like a giant strategic chess match where every single player is anticipating their adversary's next move. The absolute baseline concept here is the Nash equilibrium. In plain English, this is just a stable state where no player can improve their outcome by changing their strategy all on their own, assuming nobody else changes theirs, of course. For our explainer today, think of this concept as the hidden math that's literally keeping the global cyber battlefield from boiling over into all-out war. It's this invisible force of stability. So before a nation launches an attack, they calculate what's called their potential payoff. The study actually normalizes these payoffs onto a really simple scale, from -3 to +3. To land on that score, states crunch specific variables. They multiply the operational impact, the success rate, and the overall strategic value, and then, here's the kicker, they subtract the heavy costs. Things like severe retaliation from the target or massive international collateral damage. It's a strictly mathematical risk versus reward calculation.
Section 2. The Global Cyber Battlefield Real-World Operations.
All right, let's see how this math actually plays out across the map. We're going to take this theoretical formula and look at how it's unfolded in real time across the globe over the past 20 years. The study tours a rapidly escalating scale of incidents. Back in 2007, Estonia was hit with massive denial of service attacks that just completely froze bank accounts in government portals. Then, jump to 2010, the Stuxnet virus crossed a totally terrifying threshold by causing actual physical destruction to nuclear centrifuges in Iran. And by 2016, we saw those multifaceted Russian information operations targeting the US election. We literally watched the battlefield shift from physical infrastructure right into social media and voter psychology. But here's a really crucial finding from the source material. Cyber warfare is definitely not just an exclusive club for superpowers anymore. We're seeing what the study calls the democratization of cyber weapons. The barriers to entry have completely tanked. A perfect example? The 2015 cyber attack on Brazil's energy grid, which used some seriously sophisticated malware to target industrial control systems. The thing is, this attack was allegedly orchestrated by Venezuela. It just goes to show that even nations with less advanced traditional militaries can inflict massive global disruptions. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the fascinating irony hidden in these calculated payoff scores. Look at this. You have incredibly technologically superior nations like the USA and Israel scoring deeply negative payoffs of -3 and -2. Meanwhile, operations from Russia and China actually yielded positive payoffs of +1. I mean, why on earth would the most advanced cyber militaries in the world score so poorly in game theory math while the others succeeded? Section 3. The medium impact sweet spot. The gray zone of warfare. And that brings us to the big twist of this whole explainer. The counterintuitive reason behind those wild payoff scores comes down to understanding exactly how hard to hit your target. Because cyber conflict, it's not a zero-sum game. When you plot the impact of an attack against the attacker's actual reward, you notice something interesting. Low-impact attacks are honestly pretty useless. They offer zero strategic value, so they get a negative payoff. But high-impact attacks also get a negative payoff because they trigger massive, completely uncontrollable retaliation. The real sweet spot, that gray zone where attackers actually reap the highest positive reward, is right there in the middle, the medium impact attack. Let's just focus in on that -3 score for a second. This was the payoff for the joint US-Israeli Stuxnet attack on Iran's nuclear facilities back in 2010. Technically speaking, it was an absolute marvel. It physically destroyed roughly 1,000 centrifuges. But strategically, the study shows it was a deeply negative result. Why? Well, the massive impact of that attack totally galvanized international opposition, and worse, it forced Iran to massively accelerate and upgrade its own offensive cyber capabilities just to retaliate. The collateral damage completely wiped out the strategic success.
So contrast that super counterproductive physical destruction with operations that sit perfectly in that medium impact gray zone. The study points to things like the 2019 disinformation campaigns targeting the South African elections, or the 2016 U.S. election operations. By basically weaponizing social media and using tailored messaging, state actors were able to amplify societal divisions and hit major strategic goals. And the kicker? They did it all while staying carefully underneath the threshold that would actually provoke a traditional military strike. That is exactly why they scored positive payoffs. So the really crucial point here is understanding the anomalies. Take Israel's -2 score during the 2012 cyber conflicts in the Middle East. You see a negative score and you probably think they failed, right? Actually, scratch that. The study reveals this was literally the only scenario in the entire dataset that reached a stable Nash equilibrium. It turns out a negative payoff can absolutely be a winning strategy if your ultimate goal is long-term stability. Israel basically accepted a lower immediate payoff to prioritize long-term deterrence, which stopped the conflict from spiraling totally out of control. It's all about playing the long game.
Section 4. The Future of Cyber Power. Emerging AI Threats.
Okay, so this mathematical balance we've been talking about, this really delicate dance of restraint and medium impact attacks, it's kept the world back from the brink so far. But the study issues a pretty stark warning about this upcoming pipeline of technological singularity that threatens to completely shatter this equilibrium. First off, the integration of artificial intelligence means we're staring down the barrel of fully autonomous cyber weapons. Second, because AI processes data almost instantly, attack and defense cycles are going to far exceed human response speeds. And third, the horizon of quantum computing threatens to just break our current encryption methods entirely, which leaves IoT devices and upcoming 6G networks wildly vulnerable.
I actually want to read this chilling realization directly from the source material for you. Quote, "The integration of AI into cyber operations may fundamentally alter the dynamics of cyber conflicts, potentially accelerating the pace of attacks and responses beyond human decision-making capabilities." The real danger here isn't just that the weapons are getting better, it's that we are literally removing human strategic calculus from the payoff formula. Game theory relies entirely on rational actors calculating risk. So what happens when the actor is an algorithm operating faster than a human can even think?
We've seen that for the last 20 years or so. Human restraint and the sheer fear of massive retaliation have kept cyber warfare safely in the gray zone. But as AI takes the wheel, all that stabilizing math, it might just become totally obsolete. Which leaves us with one absolutely crucial question to ponder. When machines are the ones making the moves, who actually controls the game? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structured look into the hidden math of cyber conflict sparked your curiosity to dig deeper into our crazy, rapidly evolving digital world. Stay focused and keep learning.